I'm going to talk to you guys very briefly about making art with data. I write software to manipulate data and put it through many transformations. It's much like what other artists would do with paint or clay, actually. The thing about working with data is, no matter what you do to it, no matter what sort of contortions and manipulations you put it through, some core element, like a data essence, comes through. So you can twist it and pull it, but the data still speaks. Data always has a story to tell, and it's very hard to silence. I'd like to show you, this is a large digital photograph. I made it a few years ago. It's called The Top Grossing Film of All Time, One by One. It's made up over 350,000 little pure color squares. You can see those. Let me show you here. So each of these squares is the frame of a film, a single film. This is the film Titanic in its entirety, all right? And it's rearranged from the upper left corner is the beginning of the film to the lower right is the end. And even though I've obliterated all this content, there's no, you can't see anyone, there's nothing here but pure color, the narrative sort of still shows up right here, the top here. This is Leo on the bow of the Titanic. I'm king of the world, right? And down here, this is where the ship goes down. So these are four large photographic prints about human size. And this is every Playboy centerfold from the 1960s, the 1970s, the 1980s, and the 1990s. And again, I took this sort of very not safe for work content and kind of obliterated it into these four photographs. And so although that original content is gone, you still have this sort of ghost of the evolution of this kind of portraiture, if you want to think of it that way. So up here in the 1960s, this is sort of hair. I think of this figure in aggregate. She sort of turned to the side, and over time, this type of portraiture changes. So you can think of this as an animation. By the time you get to the 90s, it's sort of full frontal. She's looking at the camera directly, right? So over these 40 years, you get this change, and that's aggregated into these images that also have a life of their own. And I think that's really important that the data manipulation leaves a trace, but then it also has sort of this new life, this artistic life of its own as objects that I've made. Now, I use a lot of cultural data and day-to-day data, but I'm also interested in what some people might think of as like really dry stuff. Like I use statistical demographic data that you might see in a database or a big spreadsheet. Right? We recently installed this at the new U.S. Census Bureau headquarters. This is a 40-foot wall. It weighs about 12 tons. And it's a data mural representing the growth of the United States population from 1790 to present. Now, I show you this more as a preface to the last little bit I want to talk about. This is an older work that also uses statistical data. It uses shoe production data from the US from 1965 to present. And my idea was, and I sort of set this up in my head from the outset, can I take sort of a boring, banal data set, like shoe production, and make it into like an optical psychedelic, right? Like make it into, using Hollywood production values, make this sort of dry thing into something that had a lot of optical life, like eye candy. Now, two things here. I have been alerted many times that shoes are not banal or boring or anything of the sort, so I stand corrected there. Okay, I got it. The other thing is that you can see this is sort of a three-dimensional form. It's actually the data form is sort of it is a three-dimensional form. I've got a little clip I'll show you that'll make it a little more clear. So you see the shape is like a mountain or a volcano sort of shape, right? It has a wide base and a narrow top. And I didn't plan for this, but it's not an accident either. The reason it's wide at the bottom is because we made lots of shoes in the United States in the 1960s and the 60s. And it narrows to the top to almost nothing because basically we don't make shoes in the US anymore. And I didn't plan for this, but the piece ends up being, it sort of undermines my intent by really being an accurate and sort of strong illustration of the outsourcing of the US manufacturing base. So even though I had this really strong intention that I wanted to make an optical special effect, I ended up with the data sort of talking as loudly as my intention. It's very, very hard to silence the data. Thank you very much.